and they may be something that leads to a later contest. I'd like to see them have a little more meat on the bones. And I apologize, that's probably my fault, because Mr. Schultz did reach out to me with draft minutes, and I wasn't able to attend to them before they got into the packet. But, I know from our discussion of the denial of the Catola motion that we had a number of substantive reasons and a number of factual reasons. And that although they're referred to in the minutes, they're referred to in a summary way. And I would feel much more comfortable, because it was such a robust discussion and because there was so much evidence presented, I would like to at least state some bullet points of the facts that went into it. And so I would move that we table approval of these minutes till the next meeting.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Hopcroft, second by O'Connor. Roll call, please. Any further discussion, sorry. Mr. Tazio?
Nope.
Okay, roll call, please.
Cleary?
Yes.
Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Hopcroft?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
With that, now we have the agenda. Any additions or corrections or approvals? Any comments on the agenda before we have a motion to approve it?
I would just like to make one comment. Fred is new at this also, so I would just like to remind him that on roll calls, the chairman is always last.
Okay, do I have a motion to
Yep.
approve the agenda?
I can't hear you.
I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
No,
Who's on the phone?
John Kelly. On his
Mike and Angeli?
Okay, him too. Dr. John.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve today's agenda as printed.
Second.
Was that Cleary?
Yes.
Okay. Motion by O'Connor, second by Cleary. Roll call, please. Any further discussion? No, roll call. To approve the agenda.
Whoop, hold on just 1 second. Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Cleary?
Yes.
Ms. Beckner?
Yes.
Mr. Taser?
Yes.
still can't hear you.
Ms. McKenzie?
Yes.
Ms. Hopcroft?
Yes. The agenda is approved. Next, we have public comment. Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, Ms. Brown, please.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hopcroft.
She's still the vice president. She's just vice chair, but she's
Vice Chair.
sitting
All right.
in the chair position today. She ran out of people with vice chair.
That's all right, Vice Chair, whatever. I'm glad to see a woman in power up there. Couple questions I just had about your item number 6 for the form for the rental registration and then also the permit. So I didn't have a chance to find the ordinance for the short-term rental. Is this govern Airbnbs and like VRBOs and things, or is this more of like a long-term rental agreement? I just couldn't find it, so that might be a simple question. Is the $160 fee listed under number 5 on the application, is that annually or only once? And then the last question I had, which I didn't see on this rental application, is there any sort of city inspection to make sure the house is being maintained in good condition? I had rentals downstate in Livonia, and every year I would have to pay for an inspection in addition to a license, and it was more, the inspection was to make sure that the home was up to par, to make sure that there weren't any hazards that would potentially cause issues with the people renting it. And then the last thing was this rental registration permit If I had a rental property, I would never put this in my front window. Never, ever, ever. You are inviting theft, vandalism, and I just think that's a absolutely wrong direction to go with someone having to put this in their front window and declare their property is a rental, and people looking and to do something nefarious would target those houses. So those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your input.
Would you like me to go off and come back in?
Okay, and Ms. Brown, with regard to your questions, I think they're going to come up later in the agenda. When we,
About the ordinance, is that what you're referring to?
yeah, about the ordinance for the rental registration.
Yeah, I just didn't have time to find it, so it
Yeah.
might spell those out in there, but I figured I'd just ask in case someone knew off the cuff.
Okay, well, let me, if you don't mind, let me write down your questions. I don't know the answers to them, but I do not like to leave questions hanging.
Okay.
So, so it is about the 160, is it annually? And we
Or
are
one time.
definitely gonna be talking about the sign in the window, cause that is on our agenda, but the ordinance itself is already in place, as I understand it, and it didn't, since I'm here, it didn't.
Yeah, it says adopted March 8th, 2021, and I didn't have time to go into documents on demand to look and see if I could find it in
Yeah,
there.
it was on resolution, 2021
007.
007.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have time to find that. We've got documents between two different sources, so I don't know if 2021 is over on the website or if it's on documents on demand, so I didn't have a chance to look, but
And
figured-
I want to quickly answer Ms. Brown's question about does it apply to all rentals? Is it just vacation rentals? Is it-
Hello?
Can you hear me, John?
Can't hear you yet.
Alright, Tara's gonna get on hers with her, alright? She's gonna send, well, you can't hear me.
Okay,
so yeah, it was, if the 160 is annually or one time, is there any level of inspection to make sure the property isn't in disrepair?
Yes and yes.
It's annual and inspection. Who does the
Well,
inspections?
It doesn't say annual in the it doesn't say annual.
In the application, but it doesn't in the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
So who does the inspections?
probably Mr. Bucknor, his designee.
Not the like the county building department or something
I'm
like
not
that?
sure on that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's move
Interesting.
on then. Any other comments?
Oh, thank you.
This came up because we had, somebody asking if we had permits, and I dug through those resolutions and found that we had permits, but we didn't actually have, we had a resolution, but we didn't have permits or anything to put in windows. That's what Alpena does and Tawas does.
Oh, wow.
They put this form in their rental property windows?
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Did you hear that, thieves?
I think that we could be a little more enlightened and maybe put an asterisk in the window, and that means that it's inside.
Or you just keep a database, because every year you have to do the renewals, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. Sorry about that. I know it's not open
Okay,
dialogue.
sorry, I'm being a little loose too. Correct myself. Into order. Okay, old business. Anybody aware of old business that we haven't taken care of? Okay, and we'll move on to new business, and the first item is the site plan review, which is in our packet. And that is, it's entitled an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance 165. Article, it says IV, it should be X. Does everybody have that?
What was that? What'd you say? I didn't hear what you said.
It says Article IV, it should be Article X. And Mr. Tazier, I can't remember how we proceed with this type of an item, could you?
Yeah, this is the first read, so this is the read where we go through if there's any questions about this. This is now the time to make those corrections, and then, we can go take it back to a second read. Or if there isn't any questions, we can take it into a public hearing. So,
Today?
not today.
Not, right, later.
This is the first read so that we can go through there and make the corrections needed to take it into the next phase, either a second read or a public hearing.
Okay, I have a number of comments. Shall I go?
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, at the top, ordinance XX, which probably means fill in the blank, but it should be X for, Roman numeral 10. And then of 20, it should be 2024. Then in the, line 3, it should be Article X. Line 7 should be Article X. Going to page 2. I would change the language at line 63 where it says site design characteristics. I would cross out all site elements shall be designed with the, and I would replace that with the site plan shall incorporate next at line 76, E privacy. It says the site design shall provide reasonable visual and sound privacy. I would insert for the subject and adjacent properties. And at the end of that sentence, I would add and adjacent properties. I put a question mark on that in case anybody wants to disagree with that. My next item is line 85. I would remove the word as, the second word as, I think doesn't belong. Does that make sense? Then in at line 90, and by the way, I really appreciate the numbers on the lines, it really makes it easier for us to go through.
Yeah.
H, parking, the parking provided for an intended use, and I crossed out meets and wrote shall meet, just to keep the verbiage consistent with the tense that's been employed throughout. So instead of meets, shall meet. Then going to the next page 3, at line 100, after the word review, I insert and approval. And by the way, I have written these out and I did provide them to Mr. Buckner and Mr. Iconjolly. But it was just today, so I apologize for being so late. Line 104, I would remove the word by and insert in accordance with. Line 108, after the word and, I would insert the word it, IT. Line 126, this doesn't make sense to me. I circled the word concerning, and I don't know why. Well, just leave that as a question right now. Then going to the next, line 130. I would, actually 129, I would delete the word the at the end, delete surface of the, and insert waterways. And then delete the word, after groundwater, I would delete and put or the. Insert that before public sewer system. At line 132, I would delete the word concerns and just leave health and safety. Then moving to page 4, in item 2, first line, I would delete the word include and make it say including. Item 6, I would change, after within, I would delete the word a, and then delete the words foot radius and put feet instead. I think, just to explain that, I think it's confusing to say radius because someone might measure from the center of the property and then it's not what we want.
Okay, I'm sorry.
6, number 6, I would
Yep.
say, the location and identification of all existing structures within 50 feet of the site. So I'd eliminate the reference to radius. Because I think that implies from the boundary
Okay,
line.
within 50 feet of the site.
Then in line 7, I would add a check mark for narrative. I think it'd be good for them to make a narrative on that type of, item. On number 14, I would add a check for narrative. Same with 15, I'd add a check for narrative. And on 17, I would add a check for narrative. Then in 18, the word landscape, just has an extra D at the end. Number 19, next to the bottom line, I would delete the word other. Page 5, item 24. 25. Where it says references in, I would change it to reference with a D at the end. Oh, sorry, jumping up to 24, I would check the box also for site plan, considering that may be something that they could and should show on the plan, and if not, they could explain that. Then, jumping down to line 155, I inserted, 153, I inserted and agencies after jurisdictions.
Could we also go to, where it says zoning administrator and change that, put a / director
Yeah, yes,
on every reference to administrator?
yeah, let's do that globally.
Do a / director.
Yeah. Did Mr. Icongelli get that? Yeah, okay, cause that wasn't something I had written down before. Okay, then in line 155, I would insert building, did I say that? Oscoda Township Building Department. Then line 168, after consultants, I would insert the phrase, for a pre-development conference, comma. Then going down to 177, I would delete the phrase, after a pre-application conference, and then I would capitalize the A, an applicant. Going to page 6, line 205, after commission chair, then I would insert the word a, planning commission member. And then after member, I would say selected by the chair. And then at line 209, I would delete the word all toward the end. Just say meet the following standards, because there's just 2. Then line 221, I would delete the word review at the top, the second. Upon review of a site plan, delete that next review. And that's it for that page.
So 221.
Yeah, 221. Site plan application, not review. Okay, page 7, line 226, I would delete the word documents, so it says other planning. Instead of documents, I put in requirements. And then next line 227, I added a period at the end. Line 230, I added an or after the word conditions. Line 241, I changed it is to be, B-E. Line 246, I changed otherwise to the word that, T-H-A-T. And then in line 247, I put a comma after township and deleted in that case. And then after endorsement, I deleted the comma. Or it might have been a period, I can't see, but I deleted that punctuation. And that's all the comments I have for, this particular ordinance. Anyone else?
You covered it.
Thank you, I gotta say that I am. Oh, no, not this one. Okay. Do I have a motion for, do we want to make a motion to have a second read, or do we wanna move that this?
I don't think a motion is necessary, we just move it on to the next phase, we either go bring it back for a second read or a.
Okay. What's the consensus? Does anyone think we need a second read?
Yes,
Mr. O'Connor? Okay.
yes, I think that we should get that written so that we can all read it fluently, because as you know.
It was quick, yeah.
Well, and you've had the advantage of going through it and analyzing it. I'm not gonna tell you how well or not well I read it. I did read it, but yes, now
Right, and-
I'm getting the flow, but it was quite quick. So if we could print it, review it, second read, and then pass it on to the,
That
Board
makes
of
sense.
Trustees.
And then everyone can digest the
We
changes
would,
too.
at the next phase after that, we would then hold a public hearing on it, and then we send it to the board.
Sure.
Right. Is there any opposition to having it come back for a second read?
Or
Also,
do
during
we-
that time, if there's any other changes you can come up with, you can also send those in. I mean, if we're gonna have a second read on it, then you would just have to highlight those added changes. So if we get those changes that were proposed and you find something else, that's the purpose of a second read.
Yeah.
You can go back in once again and amend it before the public hearing.
So,
Excuse me, and I'm not trying to belabor, but, and we don't wanna rush anything because we've already been in trouble on site plan reviews, which is why we're here today, unless we need this done in a quicker time frame.
Nothing, we control the timeframes on all these type issues. It's better to get it right, than try to rush through something, so. You can have a first read, a second read, if you're still not satisfied, you can bring it back again.
Sure.
You can do it as many times as necessary to come to a prepared, public hearing.
And I think I answered my own question while I was talking out loud, because now that we're all aware of this, we'll be looking for it and making sure that we just
right.
pass on the knowledge to the person asking for site plan review.
Okay, I'll take it as a consensus that we're gonna bring this back for a second read, and we'll move on to the electric vehicle charging stations. Would anyone like to comment on that ordinance?
I did notice that you had some things, and a lot of them were the same as mine. But go ahead, and then I'll interject my thoughts as we go along.
Okay.
Is that,
Everybody good
That's
with me
fine.
going ahead with?
Yep.
Okay, so at the top, change it from 2023 to 2024. Article 4, it should say Article 6, VI, top line. Then I go to lines 2 and 3, and I would just cross those out as being superfluous and confusing. Then, line 7, I would change assemblies to assembly, singular. Line 22, I don't know the word motive, purpose, I'm not sure the reason for the word motive. Word motive.
I read that also, and I kind of understood it as movement, as getting it motive, but yes, we should question that. But can we go back to, I just don't wanna get too far down the line.
Sure.
I had, on line 9, exclusively, that operates exclusively, and it does get answered farther down, but if we have an opportunity to remove it here, so that we don't contradict ourselves, because hybrids and the one of the first electric vehicles for production had a generator that ran on gasoline, so if it was exclusively battery, it would omit that car. I mean, my opinion, okay?
Right.
So line 9, if we can line out exclusively on electrical energy, or however we wanna phrase that, that operates on electrical energy from an off-board source that is stored in the battery's vehicle compartment. And then there's the line, and produces 0 emissions or pollution when stationary or operating. Once again, the volt, when that engine generator is running to generate electricity, it's putting out emissions. Am I right?
Yeah,
I-
I would think so.
Okay, so let's,
That's worth looking at, that whole
yeah,
paragraph.
that, right.
It's a little too gnarly for me to word, smoothly right now, but, let's leave it with a question, unless.
Sure.
Then we should have a item on here that references, which they do on M, plug-in
Right.
hybrid electric vehicles. So there is a definition for that, so in this part of the ordinance, it's defining the words. So if it's defined in M as a hybrid, then this one wouldn't relate to that, because these are exclusively electric, and this one is a hybrid, so hybrid would be defined on M, an electric vehicle is now defined on C.
So you think C can
There's two different
stand-
definitions there.
So you think C can stand as
Yes.
is?
Okay, and that answers my question, as long as we're going through, we don't want somebody to sit and come in and say, well,
Yeah,
item C says.
I have a
And then
hybrid,
we have
well-
to say, well, you have to go on to read the whole thing, you know.
yes.
But, okay, as long as everybody's in agreement, that's fine with
That's
me.
okay if you
Yeah,
have
you
to
tried
go
to
on to.
define each type in the definitions by exactly what they are. Because now somebody comes in and say, okay, I don't have a, my hybrid runs on hydrogen,
Sure.
okay?
I would actually like to see the hybrid car come right on, between C and D then, so we're defining the types of cars, cause now we go to charging levels. And then electric vehicle means this.
We
So
can
I-
move that up.
Yeah, I would say wherever we're putting the car or vehicle type, let's put them together so that they don't have to read
We have a
3 pages
definition
down to
section?
see, well,
Yeah.
where's the hybrid at, you know? I mean, I think that's just,
Sure, that makes
courtesy.
sense. And I
cause
think
that's the way that I read it too, when I did a first read on this, I was like, well, what about hybrids? And then I got down, I'm like, oh, they're talking about hybrids here, and then I
Right, they had to
understood
go
it,
to
like,
different colored
you
panels.
explained it. I was like, okay, these are definitions.
Right, it should be up with the rest of them.
Okay,
So we'll move M up to where D is? Is that what we're,
I think so.
And then,
Let's see how that flows. We'll put it up there and see how it flows.
and make D M?
well, then D would be E.
Yeah, then they'd all go
Okay.
in sequence.
yeah, they
after.
just go down one, I think, yeah.
And so forth on down. Okay, all right, Madam Vice Chair, you can go back to where you were at
So-
line 22, I think is what you
Right, I
were.
was at 22. Does anybody understand why it says battery for motive purpose, or is the word motive, should it be someone else, or should it not be there? I just didn't get the meaning of it.
I didn't understand that either.
Let me interject, this is John from Beckett Rader.
Yep,
Motive is a verb that says, basically motive is anything that creates a physical or movement motion. So that's, automotive,
oh, as in automotive, yes.
because an automotive is a car that motive should be in there as a
Yes.
descriptor.
Okay, it makes sense. I don't know if the, okay. There might be a synonym that would be easier for the layperson to understand, but I do think it's valid, I get it.
Well, in that sense, I don't think it says anything about electrical bicycles in here at all.
Do electrical bicycles get charged at a charging station?
Yeah, that was,
They do.
no, I'm saying, yes, I agree with Matt. It doesn't say about that, but unless they have the NEMA, whatever the number is of the plug that fits that, I'm talking electrical with Matt.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying, right,
Yeah.
so, the adapter type
Right, the
situation.
adaptability of the plug.
Because they
would
do
not-
have the capability with the voltage to charge those batteries at 120 volts.
Okay, and I suppose if somebody wanted to install that type of a charging station, that you're looking to make sure we include that, is that?
No, I'm just asking, we're using the word motive, that's a motive
Sure.
vehicle, and that's what we're
Right.
talking about here, right? I
Right.
mean, we're talking about all, not automotive, but motive vehicles,
Right.
and it's a battery charged bike, which I'm not real familiar with them, but I know that they do charge. I don't know that they have some type of AC generator on them that charges them as they're riding them or whatever, but I'm not real sure about that.
They should just die and you leave them at the beach.
They don't, okay.
I question that myself.
Yeah, I just don't, I mean, I guess it takes some research, that's why we're doing this reading, right?
So do you think we need to include bicycles in this?
I can't say that I've ever gone by one of these
Well,
charging stations in these bigger cities and seen a bike. Indianapolis has electric bikes that are charged up and on the street. I don't know how they charge them though. I don't know if they charge them.
Why don't we add a question, what about electric bikes?
well, in line 23 says, electric vehicle includes a battery electric vehicle, and a bicycle would be an electric, without saying bicycle.
I guess we just need definition or if they can be used with these charging stations or not. I guess that would be a little research.
There are definitions for bicycles and they're under a certain horsepower rating, I believe it's a quarter horsepower rating. So they're not considered an electric vehicle because of the amount of horsepower that's.
Kinda like one of those.
Yes,
buses that
so they have their own
buses use.
definitions.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask that with the motive kinda confused me, though, when he defined it that way.
I talked to a gentleman yesterday, who, I asked him how far he gets on his bicycle, on his electric bike. He said he goes all the way to Walmart, and then he has to charge it down there for, 2 or 3 hours, and he hangs out. and
Oh,
then
wow.
To ride it back.
Interesting.
Very heavy bike.
Okay, moving on, if I may, to line 27, just a style change, I would take out after use, I would remove the colon and make, means uncapitalized, lowercase, just to be consistent with the other paragraphs. Moving on to the next page, line 53. No, line 51. I just made the comment to globally capitalize the word township unless it's referring to a generic township, but if it refers to our township, it should be capitalized, just to be consistent. So I just made that as a goal, search and replace. I didn't get all of them, just said search and replace. So then for line 53, I would add a comma after vehicle charging station. Line 54, I would take out the words adopted by and add of the. Next sentence, I would remove entirely. Next phrase, the requirement for, I would remove that phrase and capitalize the word submission of. Then insert the word a and remove the words an official. Next, down to line 64, division, at the end of the sentence should be department.
One second. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's the Iosco County Building Department is their name.
Right, now, can we go back to 56, line 56?
Yep.
And my question is, excuse me. Properties zoned residential, when the electrical vehicle charging station is located inside a structure. What if you don't have a garage? What if it's not inside? Many
You have to
people,
get a permit. Right?
many people do not have a garage, and you could still have a charging station outside your house. So I guess we just don't want to let people believe that they gotta build a garage.
No, wouldn't it just mean that they'd have to get a permit? Because it would be out and exposed to the public, so it should conform to some, standards.
Well, property zone residential, I don't know if they're referring to that if it was inside the garage, that you don't need an electrical permit to put the power in?
That's how I read it.
I-
Oh, an electrical? No, yeah, this is a township permit, not an electrical permit.
Okay, but,
We're talking about these charging stations being in a residential home, is that what you're talking about then?
well, it says property zoned, let me go back and read the whole sentence and find out why I was thinking that. So, submission of an official plot plan is not required for properties zoned residential. Okay, and then it says, when the electrical service charging station is located in a structure. So, do you still, submission of an official plot plan is not required for property zoned residential, but if you have it outside, is it required?
That's how I read it.
That's how I read it too.
And are you thinking that may not be desirable? Do we want Mr.
I don't know if
Eichenberg to
that's
speak
fair.
to that?
Let me explain that. This is two parts. If the property does not have a garage, and they're installing a electrical charging station outside, they're required to submit a plot plan to the township, so the township can evaluate where the charging station is relative to their setbacks on the property. If the property has a garage and they're putting it in the garage, there's no need for a plot plan, because the plot plan is only used to show what's outside of the building, not what's inside.
Okay, good, thank you. You okay, Mr. Oakley?
No, I'm still a little ambiguous. If I put one in my garage, do I need to get an electrical permit to install said charger?
Yes, that would come under the building.
You need to get a permit, but you don't need to submit a plot plan.
Oh, very good, thank you. That's the answer. I'm sorry to be a little dense on that.
That's okay. Okay, moving on. I did line 64, I did line 68, did I do line 65, changing in any to A? Line 70, now here we changed the terminology from gasoline service station to vehicle fuel station. And so I assume that this should be that too, so I changed, wherever it says gasoline service, I change it to vehicle fuel, and that was a new change that we made.
Madam Chair, I saw
Yes.
that in your revision. However, the way this should be read is that if the primary use of the parcel is strictly for a retail electric charging station, then it's subject to the same review and approval process that you would go through for a gasoline service station.
Oh. But do we still have gasoline service station? I thought we changed it to vehicle fuel, even gasoline service. Or am I thinking of only a segment of our code, not the whole thing? Mr. Tassier?
I believe there's still a gasoline in other zoning districts, there's still gasoline.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I said corrected. We'll take it back to
Just
gasoline service.
wanted to make sure that the township was covered, that's all.
Right, absolutely. Okay, we'll call that a step. So, anybody have anything else on that page?
Can we go back to line 63?
Yep.
Where we were talking about installations shall be subject to a zoning permit approval administered by the zoning administration. Once again, would that include electrical? Do we need to have an electrician's, an electrical view on that?
Absolutely.
Well, it just says zoning administrator and permit approval administered and inspected by Iosco County Building Division.
And building department, Iosco County Building Department, not division, we change it to department.
So they get the permits through the county for that.
They would come get a land use permit from me, and on the second page, there's little check marks, Miss Dig, Iosco County Building Codes, and they would, that part would be checked off, that they have to go there to pull their electrical permit, HVAC, all those type of permits.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, good. Next page. My first item is on line 85, and I would remove the word shall. That's superfluous. Line 93, I would add a comma after bollards.
I'm sorry, you said 93.
Yeah, 93. Parenthetical phrase such as concrete filled steel bollards, comma.
Can we go back, Madam Chairman? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Line 77, we're talking about, an electric vehicle parking space without being in violation of the requirements. Are we changing that to, making it an electric, a charging space? And here's where I'm gonna go with that, is that down in B where it talks about accessible electric vehicle spaces. If we then make these charging spaces for electric vehicles, must they be charging to use that space, or can they just park there overnight? So you're doing the same thing up on line 77, and I'm just wondering if we need a little bit more definition in there, because, so let's say we've got 3 people that live in the apartment building, and they park in those spaces, but they're not charging, and now the 4th person comes, and those cars aren't even charging, and now they can't charge. So I'm looking for a little balance on that. Am I
Right.
off base?
No, I thought that we were prohibiting that.
All right, then I guess I didn't understand it.
No, well, I may not have either. Let's make sure we got that right.
And then on line 78, it says, public electric vehicle charging stations are reserved for parking and charging electrical vehicles only. So we're back to the same problem, is the guy with the electric car that just came from home, has only driven for 5 minutes, is not charging, but he's parking there. And then the guy that drove from Tawas to here to go to the moon and back, looking for a place to park and charge. Is this something
So
that?
we need it noted that these parking spaces are for charging vehicles only.
Not parking.
Well,
So we
they'd
wanna
have to
remove
park to charge,
parking.
so we gotta be careful there. You know,
We need it phrased in some
But if
way
we-
that would be, must be hooked up and charging.
And we could take out the word parking and charging only. That should take care of it, right? At least for line 78.
well, cause we know if they're charging, that the car's gonna be parked.
Right,
So can we remove parked?
parking and, yeah, on line 78.
John, have you heard that before?
What's that?
Where we were talking about the charging spaces, just having electrical vehicles parked there without charging?
No, I haven't heard that, but the issue that I have would be, I mean, if you wanna just say public electric vehicle charging stations are reserved for charging electric vehicles only, get rid of the word parking, that's fine, but
Okay.
the issue really here is, Fred's not gonna have the time to go around and verify the people that are parked in a electrical charging space are charging, you know what I mean? It's gonna be hard to enforce by the township. The only way the township's gonna know is if somebody calls and complains.
Well, that could go under our, code compliance with the law enforcement, instead of on the,
Yes.
civil infraction would go on the police compliance.
I think we're good if we remove parking and just have it say for charging.
I think it sounds better.
And
There's no
Yeah.
confusion in there.
Fred, you would have to make sure that gets amended into the code of ordinance for police duty.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on to, my next thing is on line 94. No, did that one in mind. Line 99, I would uncapitalize the word vehicle at the end. Line 112, I would add the word a or a designated township, and then I would delete division, department, and put agency. And that's all I have on this. Anyone have any additional comments on the electric charging stations?
I'm sorry, we're back on line 112. Design specifications for signage shall be obtained from the zoning administrator or designated township division/department.
I said a designated township agency.
Got it.
Any other comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
We have, we have township chargers over by the office, correct?
Right?
Yes.
And then we have the one in Rogers parking lot. We're referring to the township chargers, cause we can't ticket somebody for charging in Rogers, because that's technically a private parking lot.
Well, they're open to the public.
Right, but
Private parking lot,
you get in an automobile accident, a lot of times you're SOL,
They take on the responsibility at Rogers.
yeah. So it'd be for the public
You
use.
carry the liabilities.
Yeah.
Madam Chairperson, if I may, line 111, where we talk about maintenance, electrical vehicle charging station shall be maintained in all respects, including the functioning of equipment.
Which line are you on, Tim?
He's on
114, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
114, it's a G in parentheses, and why did I circle that? Maintained in all respects, where are we looking for a definition of that, because we sure don't want it to go down to the wayside. And then I was also looking for, under nationally acceptable, I know this is under, it would be constructed under NFPA 70, which covers electrical, but I don't see any fire extinguishers of any type on any vehicle charging stations, and I wondered if there was any, I'm just through town, I wonder if there's anything about that. And then an emergency stop to stop the flow of electricity to a vehicle if suddenly there should be a problem, that you could immediately stop that. The one at Rogers has an e-stop, the one over in the township lot does not. And I'm looking for some sort of continuity nationally with that, or how that goes. I mean, obviously, we're not gonna reinvent the electrical charging station in Tawas, but, in Oscoda. But, we certainly wanna make sure that we have the necessary items available.
Tesla's charging stations have specific standards that are designed from Tesla, and that would be their maintenance, would be to their stations. The other ones also have a, like an underwriters thing by a national standards. So those would be the standards that would be used by inspectors. They would have to be certified inspectors to be able to go in there and do those things. As far as the, emergency shut-offs and that, there may be one built in on the, we don't know, because we don't know what those standards are for their construction to begin with. So I'm going to say that they have to meet a state and federal standard and for operation, and so when we write our ordinances, we always put in there that they have to follow the standards for state and federal, laws, standards. So if there is a electrical charging station act that's somewhere out there in the state or everything, then in order to qualify, our building department would have to make sure that those stations that are being built in our community meet those standards. That'd be part of the, that's part of the agreement we hold with the building departments in the county.
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Tasher. I just am looking into this overall, and NFPA 70, which I built buildings and followed that code, I'm sure that they have something in there as for building a charging station and how it operates. So I'm not too worried about that. I just wanted to put it out here for discussion if anybody else had any thoughts or information that I just wasn't aware of, so.
We, as a township, my view of this is that by no means do we have anybody that I know of that would be qualified to do any of that, so I wouldn't want us to accept the liabilities on that, and we give that, liabilities over to our departments that we hire to and do those inspections.
Any other
Okay.
comments on this ordinance?
Thank you.
And what is the consensus? Will we bring this back for a second read? Yes.
I would
Okay,
be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, I would agree.
okay.
That, by the way, that doing the second reads, that's nothing new, for
We
10 years
usually
I've been
do.
involved,
Okay.
we have, it was rare that we weren't doing second reads.
I mean, with me being new, I know that I'm reading this and I'm understanding it some like you are, and then, you know, so I like to see it.
Usually
all
a-
the grammar and all the verbiage correct, and then go through it and really dissect it.
Usually we'd send something to a public hearing, like if we were gonna change a definition or one line, but for an entire,
Ordinance.
with several amendments to an
Right.
ordinance, then you definitely wanna go through that second reading.
Next up on the agenda is the vacant building registration with attached form. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the vacant building registration?
Partially, I was given to me right before the meeting, but,
The only thing was amendment is that.
okay.
So,
What did you have, Ms. Hopcroft? On line 1, it says vacant property, and I thought we were talking about buildings. Are we gonna have a problem with that word?
This change has vacant buildings.
Oh, well then I must have an old copy.
And the one that was, you don't have this one?
Yes, but mine on line 1 is the purpose of this article is
Oh.
to establish a vacant property registration as a mechanism to protect.
no, that's a good catch. I think that should change to
That's all
building.
in there right now.
Okay.
Unless there's another,
No, I was looking down the bottom, Bob highlighted that there was some, the only changes to this were, I didn't know he started from the top.
Is that already changed, Mr. Tassier, from property to building on line 1?
This one here that is there, the top part, all of that is exactly the way it's in our ordinance. I printed this one today.
So the,
No, I don't have that part on there. So if you pull up on the ordinance online, this part will all be in there already. Cause we didn't change that.
So what's up, as I understand it, what's before us today is that the township has already adopted a vacant building registration ordinance. But we have our planning commission subcommittee studied this and brought to this body a recommendation to alter it. And is this our first presentation of that?
This is the first read of that,
Okay, so-
amending the existing ordinance.
Okay, so I'm a little bit handicapped because I don't have that exact text in front of me. Do you wanna describe it, or I can, but, I could do it, or you could correct
I
it.
think that's the copy that he has in his hand right there that's highlighted. We changed in there this part, what is that? Is that definitions?
Yeah.
It's
that-
in the
Okay.
definitions. So-
Right, okay, I can read it from here.
Yes,
So
I'd like to
it's-
go back to what that Tim's saying though, is that, the purpose of this article is to establish a vacant property registration.
And I think we need to make that one of our changes. And we hadn't decided that in the subcommittee, but I agree with you, line 1,
I think
property
it should
should
say
be changed
buildings
to building.
and property. Cause people have vacant property too, that they let overgrow with Blythe or,
But we didn't address that, and this is more specifically if you go
Two
into the
buildings.
meat, because it talks about the windows and the display,
Okay.
and I don't think that it encompasses property.
This was inserted into the State Street Neighborhood and Business District.
okay.
In response to many, many citizen complaints about the vacant buildings on State Street.
Mhm.
And so it's specifically addressing that, so I
The
think
Business
that
District.
Mr. Cleary's, comment about the word property, I think we do need to change that to building, to be consistent. So that's line one, property should become building. Then to go on to the meat of the changes that our subcommittee is proposing to this body, that is where there's the definitions of vacant building under section 8.2-2 definitions. There's a paragraph about evidence of vacancy, there's a paragraph about owner, there's a paragraph about person, and then I'd like to focus us in on the paragraph about vacant building means. And this was brought to our attention by a citizen. So we have 6 characteristics of a vacant building. What we are recommending that this body adopt now is that we add a 7th to that definition of vacant building, and that we actually take the paragraph that says evidence of vacancy and put that in as number 7.
What's that? We'll take what?
So take the paragraph.
Oh, right here.
Yeah,
Right.
and
Called
make
evidence
that
of vacancy, and eliminate the words evidence of vacancy means, and then start out number 7 with any condition that on its own or combined with the other conditions, blah, 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 and then continue it out. So that gives more substance and content to, because without that, somebody can evade the ordinance simply by having electricity in their building. So.
So we're
that's-
talking, taking evidence of vacancy paragraph and making it number 7 under
Correct.
highlight, okay.
Yeah, and just eliminating the introductory words, yep. Is there any
No,
discussion
I
on
agree
that?
with that. That's all that was changed on this, though?
That's it. And then, of course, there's the form, but should we take that up separately? I have a few comments on the form,
Is there something on the form you would like changed?
yes. Just a little bit,
One is the administrator, director/director.
yes. No, I hadn't put that in, but I appreciate that, it should be there. So going to the form, if there's no other comments on the substance of the ordinance itself, what I would change on the form, or just add to it, I would put the title vacant building registration, up where it says Charter Township of Oscoda, just to identify the form. Then down at the bottom, where it says authorization maintenance plan agreement, in the first paragraph of text, after the word registration, I would insert the word ordinance. The next to the bottom line, after whichever is less, I would add a comma. And then in the check boxes on the next page, they're all preceded by questions, but I would make them statements rather than questions. So at each of those question marks, I would change to a period. In the second acknowledgement, I acknowledge that I have submitted, I would capitalize vacant building plan. In the next acknowledgement, below brief description of vacant building plan, I acknowledge that by, I would insert the word my submitting. And I would add a comma after application. And as Mr. Tassier said, everywhere that it says zoning administrator, it would be /director, or vice versa, consistent. And that's it, that's all I have for this. Any other comments?
I would make one comment. I had a meeting today with the new regional, small business. There was a grant that was given that we fall into the area of, our region is for economic development grant coming out of Target, Alpena, They are regional directors now for us and small business. They had a grant. We were within, goes from basically 5 counties, from Iosco all the way up, it goes to Presqu'île. So they got a grant to have a small business economic director for small businesses that is coming to all of our communities to help set up offices here in our town, working under this grant to help our small businesses. And the first question they asked me on that was, do we have a vacant building registry? And I said, as a matter of fact, we do. And luckily, they were very pleased with that because it really makes their work easier. They know what's available for small business growth. So this is a good ordinance. The purpose and the intent is good, and it's recognized that it's gonna help fill those buildings. And if we get, apparently it's known throughout the state now that this is an issue, not only for Oscoda Township, but throughout the state, regionally, and they put in place help for communities like ours to fill those buildings. Having a vacant building registry is one of the first things that this new position is going to be asking for. What buildings are vacant? And what condition are they in? This is a plus for us.
Very good. Okay, so let's, shall we bring this back for a second read?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the amendment to the flight district zoning. Do we wanna take a break, stretch, before we do this? Everybody?
It's a big one.
Big one, yeah. Happily, I don't have that many comments.
I didn't even get a copy of that, and it wasn't in my,
It wasn't in your packet? It was pages
Yeah.
19 through
I'll
31?
give you a copy.
how many times have I come to your office, sir?
I need to stretch.
I think this is very well written.
Me too.
We've been working on this for probably a year now. I like the way this is written out. The one thing I will comment, since we're talking about an area that was a Air Force base that had no form whatsoever because the government put things wherever they wanted to put it. It was hard for them, for John and his team to come in and make a form, but looking at this, they did it. And that's what I really like, the build 2 lines. I like the form that it's taking here, I like the general standards that they put in. I like breaking it down to 3 zonings, districts with mixed use, industrial and business. I think presently there's 6 different zonings out there?
Yes.
So breaking this down in this way, I think is very, it takes away a lot of the antiquated zoning practices that has been going on out there since the forming of it in '93. So, this is way overdue, and I really like it, so that's my comments on it.
Any other comments?
Not for me, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
can't
I
read
have
that fast.
several, but not that many comparatively. It's quite beautifully written. I agree with Mr. Tazier. On page 1, I just have, at line 26 rather, I would add a comma after base, the word base, since the closure of the military base, comma. At line 36, I would uncapitalize industrial research, just to be consistent. Moving on to page 3. This is perhaps my most complex questions or edits. I suggest that globally we either say SLUP or SUP, special land use permit or special use permit unless there's a reason to differentiate, but I think that they're used interchangeably, so we should just be consistent. Next,
I would, say, when you say special land use, you're talking about the land, and then when you're talking about a special use, we could be talking about things that are not the land.
oh, yeah,
So I think that's the way why that's written that way.
But this says special land use permit.
It also
Both
says
though.
special use permit, general
okay, well,
standards.
when
Right.
we read through it for our second read, and when we all look at it again ahead of our second read, let's keep that in mind and see if there's a need to differentiate from time to time, because I didn't get the clarity of that, but maybe I was just buried.
Maybe we should ask John.
I was gonna say,
I mean, I
Yeah,
was a little
Chairman, can we
confused
ask
by it
John?
too, cause
Yeah,
it says
Mr.
special land
Icongelli.
use permit,
Yeah.
and it's SUP.
Would you comment?
Yeah, I think you can use either one. In the planning lingo, SUP, special use permit, or SLUP for special land use permit are really one and the same.
Yeah.
I'm just right now looking through your ordinance to find out exactly what the ordinance calls it. Hold on a second.
It's mostly SUP, just occasionally SLUP.
Let's keep in mind also that, this is the year that we're having the approval for the rewrite of our 165 ordinance, so we will be consistent when that is completed in 2024
Right,
of one term throughout.
that's right, okay. So, I'm gonna go on, if it's okay?
Yep.
So,
Something,
right now, Madam Chair, you guys refer to it as, for example, under section 9.11, you have modification of approved special land uses, and then you also have standards for special permit uses. So the current ordinance uses both interchangeably. I would recommend that we use one and just stick with it.
yes,
So what's your preference? You wanna call it a special use permit or special land use permit?
Special use permit would be, better in my mind.
I agree with that, special use permit, because that covers it all, because if it's not.
Okay, then I'll make sure it's in throughout.
Okay, very good. Now, something I didn't see, this is a question rather than an edit, where it says in the introductory paragraphs that the special provision column references that specific section of the zoning ordinance. And I didn't see that in the chart, or did I miss that, or is that to come later, or Mr. Tazio, I look to you as being more,
Could you repeat
conversant.
that again, you're up
So
in the beginning?
in the very first introductory paragraph, it says that if the SUP has additional standards over and above the general standards, the special provision column references that specific section of the zoning ordinance. But we don't have that in this text, right? Or am I missing it? We don't have those little special references?
No, that would be in the rest of the 165 ordinance.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, that's why I didn't see it. Okay, thanks. Okay, so moving on. I would change the structure of the text that follows section 4-26-4, general standards for special land use permits. I would change the structure by putting a 1 in front of this first paragraph, and then have A, B, and C follow it. Then after C, I would insert on number 2 that says, Planning Commission decisions shall. And then I would change that D to A, and then have them go in sequence A, B, C, D, E. And my rationale for this is that it's two different things. The chunk above, the A, B, and C, refer to what a permit should do, or what an application should provide, and the A, B, C, D, E, the lower 5 pertain to how the planning commission should exercise its power. So I wanted to differentiate between those two.
And I'm sorry, 2 would be called again?
Two would have a new introductory little line which says, planning commission decisions shall, and then they should be related to the police power, blah, 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 blah.
Agreed.
Okay, then within that, I just have a couple of little grammatical things, so I'd like to back up and go to line 49, which is now number 1. The planning commission shall review each, and then I would insert special land use permit, understanding that that's probably gonna be called special use permit, but just to have that subject in there.
So it would be SUP application?
Yes. And then line 50, I would add a comma after and. Meets the following standards and, comma, in addition and, comma. Then line 59, who will use the land? I would remove the word use. Who will use the land or activity under consideration? Then moving down to line 67, after agencies, I would insert a comma and the word and. Then after applicable, comma, I would delete and insert the word see, although there may be a more appropriate verb. I understand that see is a little bit wavy gravy, so if somebody wants a different verb. I was gonna say assure, but I thought that was too mandatory. So, but I thought it needed a verb. Then I would look at the last sentence of what is now C, and this is in line 68 and 69. The applicant shall have the plan reviewed and approved by the Oscoda Township Fire Department before the Planning Commission's review. That whole sentence needs to go somewhere else, cause it's inconsistent with the subject matter. It's certainly an important thing, but hopefully it already is somewhere else, but I just flagged that to go into its appropriate spot. Cause it's an order to the applicant, it's not something about our power. And I
that-
understand that.
That should be reviewed during a,
Site plan.
pre-development meeting.
Pre-develop, right.
And it's probably already mandated there.
Fire department is part of
Yeah.
those.
Okay, so we can delete that. Okay, then, moving on to less consequential. Anybody else, anything on that page? Okay, moving on to page 4, under distinguishing characteristics, the second line from the bottom. I would delete the words use and of, and then capitalize D for drive it.
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman. Drive It is a brand name of EFIS, which is, EFIS stands for Exterior Insulation Facade System. And
Right.
Drive It is a brand name of an EFIS system. So unless somebody has any objection to why that, we don't use Kleenex every time we put tissue down.
Yeah,
Am I,
I
are you
understand, yeah.
seeing where I'm going?
Uh-huh, so you're thinking that we should describe it rather than use the.
Well,
use the-
I just don't wanna be
brand
caught
name?
in a situation where somebody says, this isn't Drive It, this is Stowe, S-T-O-E, which is another
Oh, yeah,
brand name
okay,
of,
well, let's get a good
of an
description
EFIS
of that.
system.
Okay, I'm not qualified to come up with that.
No, that's all right, I just don't want us to use something that, I mean, unless, John knows something different about the definition there?
No, that's fine.
So we can maybe ask Mr. Icongelli to come up with a descriptive rather
We just
than the
eliminate the-
brand name?
Just eliminate Drive It.
We just
Eliminate it.
eliminate the brand name.
Yeah, got it, okay, good.
But then it would still say use of EFIS.
Spell it out.
Well,
No, I still think remove the words use of, it should say substitute fake, whatever it is, whatever the descriptive is, can only be used on upper stories, so.
Oh.
I would like to see that actually spelled out and then parentheses,
Such
Sure.
as,
then put
Sure.
in the abbreviated version of that.
Yeah.
Right, because construction people understand it right off the
Nobody
bat,
else
but
does.
nobody else does, so that, you know, let's be careful, doctor, how we're
Yeah, let's
helping the patient here.
spell it out, and then as it further referred to as, and then put that.
Yeah, or for, as an example, so that we can also bring in the other.
And to give, I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, and to give you guys a little bit more definition, an ethos system on the lower stories, if you roughhouse, or let's say somebody carries something in there and bumps into the wall, you can literally go right through it. When I say go through it, go through the exterior protection, and now you've hit the styrofoam and you have a source of moisture intrusion that's not good. So that's why it's only on the upper portion, just to give an explanation. Does that help everybody understand it
Yeah,
better?
that makes sense.
Of why it's only on the upper stories?
I don't have any other comments, but I'm trusting that Mr. Kazier will have gone through the charts with a fine tooth comb, because he speaks that language much better than I do.
Yeah, and I really, going through the charts, the way this is laid out, we've been dealing with, form-based for, a number of years now, and it is so much easier. I think, Fred, being new into the, his department, when he looks at form-based, he can appreciate.
It's a lot different than what I was used to down there.
It's
a
much
lot-
easier to
lot
be able to
easier.
pull that up
More
and look
logical.
at it, and so that's one of the reasons why it's under best practices for our RC certification is form-based, so that's why we committed to this type of zoning.
I'm still trying to talk them into going to that down there, cause it'd make it a lot easier.
Yeah. And I could get-
Most communities will be going this way, so we're ahead of the.
I don't have another comment until page 11. Does anyone have something you wanna jump in ahead of that?
Distinguishing characteristics, the, drivers is there again.
What page are you on?
We'll remove that throughout.
Okay, alright. I would just remove that throughout, yeah. It's the distinguishing characteristics under the, I don't know, in my packet, it's page 21. But we have 5 different individual packets. The packet that was on the website, it's page 21.
Oh, okay, that's the one I have too.
What
but
is
it's
the
not numbered.
section, Pat?
It's distinguishing characteristics, Travis is used again. I think we could just use the EIFS, because we'll have it defined at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
I would just remove that throughout.
Yeah, we'll do that globally. Okay, so moving up then to page 11, in the ordinance itself, that numbering, which is, section 4.26.10, general district standards. Just on the second line, I would change the word components to objectives.
What
Yep.
line is that?
It's line 108. So it says important design components, I would change that, important design objectives. Then moving to page 12, the next page, line 204, I would just insert the article A, seen from a public street. Then moving to page 13, line 239, it says built to line, I think it should be build with a D, to line. Then line 244, contain treed islands, I think it should be tree, although I could be wrong. It's not my first language. And then I have just one more comment, and that's on page 14, and I think this will probably iron itself out in formatting, but I found that the spacing in the tables of the vegetation, table 2 and table 3, where there was an extra space, I think if the table were just widened, then we wouldn't have that, and because I couldn't tell which referred to which. Although probably a landscaper could. So that's just a minor comment. Any other comments on this ordinance?
This
is one ordinance that we've been working on for a long time, and, we're about to be coming into a building, period in springtime, and I know there's development that is looking to happen out in this district, and, I would like to get this one through so that any new construction that's going on would be under the new standard, because that's what we're trying to implement. So I would really like to put a lot of special attention on this one to, possibly get this to a public hearing, because when this goes to public hearing, I would like to have it under it needs to be advertised extensively throughout that area, so that we get a lot of people in here. And I would like to have John come in and review this to the public, so they can ask those questions, cause there's probably gonna be a lot of questions about this. It's a rezoning of a multiple zoning district that a lot of people live in, and there's industry and there's business and all of that, all in one specific type of zoning. So it's unique, cause it was a base. So I think that we should have the public hearing should be held more under a town hall type environment, so that we have enough space to get those questions answered, for the people that live in this district. So, if we can have John help us in that area to bring that forward during public hearing, that would be, in my mind, the appropriate way to address, the community, to let the people know and ask those questions directly before, we go in and make this complete rezoning.
Any discussion on Mr. Tashier's comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, Bob and everyone, is there a sense of urgency then to have a special reading, to have a second reading, so that we can get it done, to get the public hearing, to get it then to the Board of Trustees, to then have it by, construction season? And I know a lot of it doesn't happen, but, Puxatawney Phil said we're gonna have an early spring. And
and
you know contractors, if we could get a machine out there.
They wanna eat shovels in the ground. My suggestion would be to have the changes made in the ordinance, send it to all of us. But when they do that, you have to remember, we cannot respond to all. We could only respond back to Fred, who would be and he would be the person that would be coordinating it. So if we made all of the corrections in this, and John or Fred sent that to all of us, we could review that. If we're okay with that, then we could send it back to Fred, and Fred could set up a public hearing.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear, that we do this in an expeditious manner,
Yes.
so that we don't miss, I mean, cause we're already,
This is pretty rock solid.
our next meeting is in March, to have a second read, to find out that.
And then you're going into
And
April.
now we already lost it, because now it didn't even, this has to go to the Board of Trustees, I'm sure.
This would be a full amendment, yes.
Sure, so I would hope that by the time we got,
Once we get our public hearing and we get it on the next board meeting, 8 days later, if they pass it, then it becomes law.
right, so
So
do we need to
have
make
time?
any motions or anything to
I would say
expedite
let's
this?
get the corrections made, send it out. If we can get those corrections made, send it out to all of us. The only thing, again, because of Open Meetings Act, you have to only respond to the one, because if we
Sure.
respond to all, that's a violation.
Sure.
We can respond back with our comments, and then, Fred can either send that out as a group to all of us. Tim recommends we do this. Okay, and if we are, all in agreement, then the last word is, he would have to come back and say, are we ready to take this to public hearing? And if each one of us doesn't have an objection to that, then we bring it to public hearing.
So the way that works, we would vote to make this amendment after the public hearing.
During a public hearing.
During a
make
public
motion.
hearing, we would
Right.
close the public hearing and then
Yes.
make a motion to vote yea or nay,
Yes,
Correct.
and then we would
Send
send
it
it
to
to the
the
township
township.
board.
yes.
I think that's pretty feasible to get that done before the
So-
March meeting, right?
so then my question goes to, Mr. Buckner and, Charlie, what's your last name? Yeah, what's your last name?
Lion.
Charlie, and
Her
Ms.
last name's
Lyons.
Assistant.
So is that feasible to get, to circulate that and get a final from us? Cause that has to be a part of the posting for the, public
hearing.
hearing,
Right.
right? The final
Yeah,
text
we
that,
we can work on it, I'm still, this is part of this job, it's still, cause the clerk handled everything down there.
right,
Much smaller area,
right.
Tara and I can get this done, buddy, I fixed your chair, right, buddy? We have, something else that we need to work on together today as well. So if we get this second reading, we can schedule a public hearing. And then we'll have to work with John when he can come here to present it.
We're thinking of doing away with the second.
We don't need a second hearing if we can
Because
come to
it's
an
a
agreement.
very
So once
tight
you guys all
document.
agree to it, we'll schedule it with John.
Is that the consensus? It's a tight document, but for that second page where I rearranged the format, but I think it makes sense to everyone, right? If we
Yes, it
just-
does,
if
I'm
we just-
agreement with all the corrections that were stated today.
And they're minor,
I'm good with
relatively
that.
minor, and this is a very coherent document, so I think contrary to our consensus on the earlier ordinances, I think the consensus here is that we're ready to go to public hearing.
With the corrections. we
With the
just-
corrections built in, so we need a nice tidy document, but as stated in our record, we're pleased with it, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that,
Is
with
there
those
any-
corrections, and once those corrections are made and sent to us, I think that we could schedule this as a public hearing now, prepare for that at our next meeting, and.
Well, okay,
But we would like to circulate it to us, so we each check the corrections that we've all talked
Yes.
about
Right.
today. But we don't anticipate any further corrections, so it should be ripe for a public hearing
So-
at our March meeting,
John's the one that fixes all those.
right? Mr. Icongelli, do you see any issues with that if we're meeting the first Monday in March?
No, I'll have the revised draft to you tomorrow. I'll send it over to Fred.
Okay,
Now, what about your schedule, cause we discussed having a public hearing on this, topic.
But your public hearing would be at your next meeting, March 4th.
yes,
Yeah,
That's fine.
okay,
I'll mark it in. Yeah.
alright, as long as you're available.
okay,
And Madam Chairman,
yes, sir.
working backwards on a calendar so that we do not fumble this on how many days we need advance notice of a public hearing, that we get it. John says he's gonna get it to us promptly, and can we all agree that we will promptly read it and get back to Mr. Buckner so that we can make sure that we schedule this?
That's a good
We
idea.
could
What
schedule
dates?
it now, and then any additional corrections can be handled through his office.
But he needs to have it by a certain time so that the packet is
So
coherent.
the packet is presented 14 days before the public hearing.
Right, and that,
So right now, we got a month.
But let's
well,
not
we
take
say
it
that
long.
right now, but
We have a short month.
but by the time we get through
You say a
President's
month,
Day and.
I'm saying 2 weeks, I want
2
things
weeks.
done 2 weeks prior to, I had this
Right.
agenda done
So we
2
should,
weeks prior to.
we should commit to each of us reviewing it in 1 week. Can we do that? Can we commit to getting it back to
Yeah.
Mr. Buckner
I-
by a week from
I'm
Tuesday?
heading out of town Sunday for business, and I'll be gone all next week, but
But you're gonna get it tomorrow.
if he gives it to me tomorrow, I'll review it tomorrow and give my input.
Well,
to
you should have it by
Right.
Wednesday if he gets it and gets it tomorrow.
So
It's
I'll get it done
available
before,
online.
I'll get it done before I leave out of town,
But-
and I give you my input on it.
I'm gonna take this with me, I can take this with me, right,
If you were.
to Mount Pleasant?
Yeah.
Okay, cause I have training in Mount Pleasant Wednesday afternoon, Thursday and Friday. So, I'll be, good for you.
You can
In
get
and
it
out.
done Wednesday morning.
I always think I can get a lot done during a training.
All right, I'm sorry, I just wanted to talk out loud about this so that we could hear
Yes,
ourselves
thank you.
and that everyone understood that now is 14 days, 14 calendar days, 14 business days, 14 non-federal holiday days. I've done government work also.
It says 14 days.
It's 14 days, but we have 29 days in this month, so.
Thank you. We do have that extra day.
Yep. So if we turn it into Mr. Buckner by the 13th, if we get our comments into him by the 13th, that should be sufficient. Right? Does Ms. Lyons agree with that? Okay. And, yeah, so it's speak by then or forever hold your peace, right? You know what I mean? Okay, good. Anything
Thank you.
else on this flight plan? About to take flight? Okay. Next, we have discussion for appointment of representative from the planning commission to the EIC. Who would like to be the representative?
Well, I was asked, and I said, after thought, that that would be fine. Because when I brought it up, I was talking about the zoning administration, and Madam Superintendent said, yeah, but we really need somebody on the EIC, and I said, well, what's more important? And Mr. Tajer said EIC, so,
Okay, that sounds like a volunteer to me.
well, just so you know that there is a volunteer, okay?
Well, I'm content with that. Does anybody wanna challenge or?
I would
Mr.
nominate,
O'Connor?
Kim for the position of representative to the Economic Improvement Committee.
Okay.
I would
is this a-
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, and, just in case I'm supposed to appoint him, I will piggyback on that motion that I concur with it, and so, roll call, please?
Mr. Taser,
Yes.
Ms. Beckner,
Yes.
Mr. Cleary,
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor.
Abstain?
Can't.
No, that's right.
Can't? You gotta vote?
Yes.
Ms. Hopcroft,
Yes,
motion carries unanimously.
very good. Thank you.
Mr.
your
Anderson hasn't been,
anticipated
oh, Mr.
service.
Anderson, he hasn't been on the last
Speak
two.
up.
Yes, please.
He hasn't been on the last two, I didn't know.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said that.
It's my fault.
We're just finding our way here. It's the
I
first
understand, well, you know, it was already unanimous without me, so,
meeting. Well, it was a majority.
a majority without me,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, next comes the form for rental registration application. Oh, how did we get that out of order? Okay. With attached application permit. Okay, this is only 4 pages. This'll be easy. I have a number of comments. Would anyone like to start before I jump in? Okay, my comments are, I thought it was a very nice, application and permit form. I just have a few minor revisions. And that is that, starting first with the rental registration application, line 2, rental dwelling units, I would just uncapitalize the word rental to be consistent at the beginning. And then at the end of the line, I would delete the word from and make 2 in the 3rd line lowercase. And then capitalize the word township. Delete the S at the end of township. And change the word my to by with a B. Then, a couple of structural changes, going down to the text after that block of asking for the owner, where it says an individual, the first, almost sentence, it's not a sentence, so I would take that first phrase ending in, with the word article, I would make it in bold and then do a carriage return, might have to change the spacing. No, it'll work. And then that's the title to the next text. So an individual designated to oversee the short-term rental of a dwelling unit in accordance with this article, colon, and then the text pertains to that individual. Then, after the colon and carriage return, so it's like a title and then the text, and then the little block to fill in. Similarly, below it, the first sentence or phrase, for each residential, blah, 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 ending with lives, parentheses, that should all be in bold, followed by a carriage return. Then, having provided that structure, then I'd like to go back and do a little bit of detailing. So going up to the second line under the first block for owner, phone, mailing, email, and individual, the word article should be capitalized. The word township should be capitalized under that. Then going down to the next title, which is in bold, the word simple fee should be inverted. It should be fee simple. It's a term of art for ownership of property. I happen to think it's an archaic usage and I don't prefer it for lay people, but it should be fee simple rather than simple fee. Then of should be changed to or, including a. The word a should go in a multi-unit building. Insert the word in, which the owner lives. And then after owner lives, parentheses, insert a colon, and also there's an extra space after the first paren. Then at the bottom, I understand and agree to comply. I would delete the word outlined according to and put of the. Ordinance should be capitalized. Then on the next page, there should be periods at the end of all those sentences. The first one, it's okay. The second one, I would delete after ordinances, put a comma, township of Oscoda, not township or Oscoda, township of Oscoda ordinances, comma, and then delete the rest of the sentence and add to which I am subject as capitalized property, capitalized owner. Then in number 3, I would capitalize township, uncapitalize the word on in the next line, and then insert the word a before fine, and then add a period. Number 4, add a period. The rest, I am okay with. And then, anybody wanna comment on that?
Not bad for my first draft of a.
Not bad.
Can we,
It looks really nice too. Very
I'm sorry,
handsome.
Madam Chairman, can we go back, line 5? And can we keep that consistent so that the question isn't asked?
Yes, where are you?
And instead of a fee, Mr. Tazer said it was in the ordinance an annual fee. Can we just put an annual
Yes, let's
fee
do that.
of,
I don't see where you are though.
It's
I'm
number
on
Oh,
line
it's
5
not-
at the
oh,
very beginning.
okay. An annual fee, got it.
I personally would take out the amount of the fee because that
Oh,
can
May
change.
change.
That's right.
So we'll
That can
say
change, so
an
you have
annual
a,
fee.
you have a fee list that's on the website, you know, like a permit fee is this much, and list that fee there, not on this form.
Is this form only pertaining to,
Rental registration. It's only for short-term rentals. So we don't need to state, that fee was based on how many rental units were found to be in the township. And as that changes, that fee changes. So if there's 85, it's based on that percentage. So now if there's 105, that's gonna actually change.
how often is
That
that up?
number.
How often is that up?
It does get reviewed, it's up to us to review that, and we don't have a timetable for that, so.
So annually?
We could do it annually, we could do it every 2 or 3 years and review it, see if it's still applicable. We do that with all of our fee schedules, we look and see if that's an actual cost. So, this, you could do it annually, because those numbers could change.
Well, it would take changing the resolution, would it not?
No, not the fee not the amount. We're saying we're gonna charge a fee. it's on the resolution that we're gonna
Yeah.
charge a fee.
Yeah, it says 160.
Well, that was a mistake. Because it was adapted in the ordinance
Just a fee.
as a fee,
Oh.
annual fee.
Now, do we have a limit on those? Cause like
No.
Tawas allows 33.
Nope.
And Alpena, I think is at like 40, so. Okay.
So,
I would agree if we're gonna remove the dollar amount, I would agree that we put an annual fee is required by the legislation.
good. Any other comments?
If it's in there as a resolution, then we have to put that down there also.
So if
An
it's in,
annual fee set by resolution.
okay, I like that, yeah.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Buckner just brought something up very interesting, and I understand Mr. Tasher's answer. Because we do have a housing shortage problem here as it is, what is affected by this? And I know we have businesses that are rentals, and we just have a brand-new hotel, and we realize it'll probably be 100%, 99% occupancy most of the time anyway. But is this something that we should look at? Can anybody tell me who else is affected by this number that other areas near us have limits on? How, what does it affect?
I will say there's a lot of case law involved in this. So you gotta be very careful about putting numbers on something, because then you can be discriminatory.
And this is the discussion that I'm looking for answers for, that,
I know that every year, short-term rentals have been challenged in court. So I would personally like to keep it as generic as possible, because we don't know what that end result's gonna be in a case tomorrow. You know, so by limiting the amounts right now is challenged. Is it legal for a community to limit the amount of short-term rentals, or where? So until those discussions, are finalized, I would be more comfortable the way it's written. We've never enforced this agreement since it's been adopted.
No, I've only got one phone call asking if there was permits.
Because there's a lot of our surrounding communities that don't allow them, or in certain zonings, they only allow it in certain zonings. That's been challenged. So, I think for right now, we would be best off just going with what our ordinance says until if we have something that needs to be amended in the ordinance itself, then I think that's gonna be based on case law. You know.
yeah, it's an
It's been a very hot
interesting-
topic, you know, all across Michigan. It started
it's
in
a very
Gun
hot topic.
Lake, Michigan, and, that, it's, so, but the reason why we have this ordinance is because there has been issues. There has definitely been issues, you know, and this is not, there's other things. If you have 10 beds in a place that's being rented out, should they be paying the fees you would for a hotel room? You know, that 5%
Right,
bed
yeah.
tax.
Village
You know, all of
house,
those questions are involved in this, you know, so, but the reason why we do have this ordinance is because of the police problems that we've had. We've had properties that, they were renting out, and it's be exclusive parties for frat clubs that have 40 people in a house and protect the neighborhood next door. They stole kayaks, they did canoes, they damaged property, they took garbage, and it was horrible. They destroyed one of the houses. So, I mean, we need to know if this stuff is going on. This will help identifying who owns it, who's maintaining it, and so there's many reasons for these things, but like I said, we've never enforced this ordinance yet, but, if it's in our book, we either need to do it or get rid of it.
Any other
That helps
comments?
me, I hear often, when places are for sale, one of the first questions that it comes out, because a lot of people are investors, or people that say, okay, you know, I do own this property now, hey, I'd like to rent it out.
And most of the time, it brings people into our community, and everybody has a wonderful time enjoying the Airbnbs and the, you know, and families enjoy it, and it brings people in our community, so it's a good thing to have them, in my mind. It's just that, you know, you also have to look out for the abuses of these things too, so. We need to know who is responsible for them, and, you know, a lot of these people are downstate. If there's damages happening and our police have to go over there, it'd be nice to know who to contact.
Sure.
You know, it's registered, so,
And I'm sure we'll find out who it affects real fast.
yeah.
So let's move on to the rental registration permit. I like Ms. Brown's comment. I think that's important that, we don't wanna put a flag in the window and invite robberies. So I think that if that's not already baked into the ordinance, and maybe it is, then we should make a recommendation to the board that that is adjusted in such a way that a homeowner is not put at risk because they're complying with our.
I like them getting a permit and a thing, but I don't think it has to be posted in a window. If they're asked to show their permit. If they're asked to show their permit, they have to show their permit,
Yeah,
you know, that,
I think the only
It's like
problem
a
that you
driver's
have
license.
with that though is that if it's a short-term rental like a VRBO or whatever, people renting it that day, do they know where the permit is? I mean,
well, the permit would be for the owner of it. You're permitted to operate this business in our township.
well, is there value, I think, Mr. Cleary makes a good point, is there value in it being posted at the property, and maybe it has to be inside the front door, like at a hotel, you know, it's on the door where the fire is and all that.
even like taped to the back of the front door,
Yeah.
you can't see it, it's there.
Yeah, some consistent place so that would help law enforcement, just like if they know they can find your street address quickly, that makes a big difference.
Like, I mean, that's the big reason that we're talking about this, is because of law enforcement, right?
Yep.
I mean, and again, we don't want them posted in the windows, obviously, because we don't want law enforcement to be there for other reasons, for people breaking in. But if we can make it to where they have to have this permit posted somewhere that's out of sight from being out the exterior of the home, I don't see. any
Madam
issue.
Chair, may I jump in a little bit here?
Yes,
Just to give you some background on what's happening around the state with STRs, is that almost all the communities that I'm working with, they regulate the number and the zoning districts in which they're located. They also require in the permit that the owner of the property that's using the STR has to identify, if they do not live within the community, they have to list a local agent that is going to be responsible if they're called by public safety to go to the house in case of an emergency or a nuisance. Other communities that don't have, where the STRs don't have access to, public water and public sewer, they're requiring that the units be inspected on an annual basis, and the number of occupants are established by the county health department based on the number of occupants, so they don't exceed the septic requirements of the system that was designed when it was a single-family home. So there are quite a few requirements that communities are putting in place in order to regulate these.
So John, can I ask you, if we're doing a rewrite on our 165 ordinance, would this also be included in that rewrite?
No, usually what's happening is that there's two parts. The zoning ordinance is being amended to identify which zoning districts they are allowed in, and then there's a police power ordinance which deals with the licensing and the regulation that is outside the purview of the zoning code.
And I believe ours is written into the police power.
Which it should be, if you're gonna license it, it should be in the
It is.
police power or in the code.
See, the reason why some of these municipalities or just areas limit and they get around the I don't know, whatever you wanna call it, where, you know, you're picking certain people, it's first come, first served. If you got 30, for the first 30 that sign up, it's
That's it.
no bearing on, you know, if you're a Martian or Earthling, it's whoever's there first.
Yeah, all the communities try to have a waiting list.
Right.
I personally would be in favor of moving forward with this, but also put it into the subcommittee review to bring up that code of ordinance and review that ordinance itself and see if we can amend that ordinance.
Yeah, if you're gonna really regulate it, Bob, you're gonna wanna check out, there's a program out there that the communities are using called Granicus.
Yep.
And it's a third-party monitoring company that really monitors how many STRs are in your community.
That's what we
And there-
used. We used that
You
to
used that?
write this, yes.
Okay, so you pretty much have an idea of how many you've got in your,
Yes.
township.
And in order to be an agent for somebody that lives outside of 50 miles, I believe it is, or 2 hours, it has to be a licensed realtor.
Okay, good, yeah, okay. I haven't seen your work. Those are some of the things that the other communities are doing.
I think that's something we can put on our review committee to go over that, cause it's been a while. I think we can use the one we have right now, but I think it should be reviewed. Maybe we can put that on our list for Vicky's, subcommittee for review.
I just had one more little comment on this permit, and that is in, in the small text, second line. Neighbor relations and be courteous to, I would change both our to the, cause there's more than both. And then in the bottom, oh, well, we're changing the, and we should decide, what we wanna recommend for the display. We have some discussion, but do we have a specific recommendation?
Maybe inside a kitchen cabinet, and it's available upon request.
How about permits shall be prominently displayed in the unit and available upon request no, we should be consistent.
I like prominently displayed inside the.
Within the unit. Do we wanna be more specific than prominently? We don't know, does everything have a kitchen cabinet, we don't know that?
Nope, I'd say just prominently displayed.
Okay. So where are we at with this? Coming back for a no, this is just advisory to Mr. Buckner, right?
This
Okay.
would have to go then to the board for approval, then.
I'll make changes.
Make changes and send it to the board of trustees for approval.
From him, he'll send it.
Yep.
We don't need any action
Nope.
from us. Okay. We are ready for, what about clarifying whether condominiums are included in the ordinance?
Now, there's a definition in the ordinance of what a short-term rental is.
Okay. All right, we have no public hearing, time for the ZBA rep, no meeting was held as I understand it. Do we have a ZBA rep?
That
We do
was,
not.
Mr.
It
Schultz.
was Mr. Schultz.
So we need to do that.
We need one. Do I have any volunteers to be a rep?
I've served on that board, as an alternate before. I would feel comfortable if we needed to have a board member.
You would
Yeah.
be comfortable? Okay. Anybody else wanna fight Mr. Cleary for that?
Probably not. I'd probably
Okay.
be like, say, yeah, vote,
Okay,
all good.
I move that I appoint, if it's up to me, and I move that he be the rep. Do I have a second?
I'll support that.
Okay.
And then while we're filling places, do we do have, you have chaired eloquently these past 2 meetings, and
All
do we
right.
have to have a changing of the guard? And you obviously have moved comfortably into that position, but we now need a vice chair?
No, our bylaws, let me read the bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's take a vote first
That
on
was on-
Mr.
let's-
Cleary's
yeah, we'll take a vote
position,
there.
and then we'll move on, while you look up those bylaws. Roll call, please.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Tazor,
Yes.
Ms. Beckner,
Yes.
Mr. Cleary,
Yes.
Ms. McKenzie,
Yes.
Ms. Hopperl.
Yes.
One more.
Nope, Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
and now Ms. Hopcroft.
Now me, yes.
Now you, Ms. Hopcroft.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you for your anticipated service.
Our bylaws state that the vice chairperson shall act in the capacity of the chairperson in his or her absence. In the event the office of chairperson becomes vacant, the vice chairperson shall succeed to that office for the unexpired term of the planning commission, and the planning commission shall elect a successor to the office of vice chairman for the unexpired term. So she automatically gets put into the chair position, and we can either appoint a vice chair, or we can wait till the June, appointment of, officers.
Well, we should
So it's up to us, if you wanna, she automatically is now the chairperson.
Sure, and that's, I'm sure that's fine with all.
So it would be
here.
prudent to have a vice chair in case I get COVID or whatever, or get to go to Mexico.
Well, that was gonna be my next question. Are you gonna be at all the rest of the meetings till June? And we don't
I
have to worry
expect
about
to.
it?
I expect to be.
I know you do.
I would nominate Tim to be the vice chair of the,
I
of the
will
planning
not-
commission.
I will not serve, I'm too busy.
You're retired.
Okay, don't everybody volunteer at once. Would you like to think about this position, and we'll take it up at the next meeting, since we have been going for a long time? Is that appropriate?
Can do
We're
that.
not mandated to do it today.
Nope, we have a chair.
You just have to be here next meeting.
Well, in case the chair isn't here, then the board appoints a chair. So if we don't have a vice chair, then we would appoint a chair to run the meeting. The representative from the trustees cannot be that person.
The representative from the committees?
The representative from the board of trustees,
Oh, okay,
my position cannot chair this meeting.
okay. All right, then let's move on to the report of the township board representative. That will be Mr. Tassier.
Okay, let me find out what we've been doing here. Okay, at our last meeting, my phone just went by. We had a public hearing for dissolution of the Cedar Lake Improvement Board. That failed. We did not vote to dissolve that board. There was a lot of discussion there, and there's gonna be some recommendations coming out of that. We approved Digicom Global to get radios for the fire department. The old radios are not capable of hookup with county and those things, so we had to have, those are quite expensive, by the way, but we approved the purchasing of new radios. We also did we tabled a resolution for the duties of the superintendent, and we reappointed Dave Eiler as the chairperson of the Economic Improvement Committee, not necessarily the chairman. We approved his term for that Economic Improvement Committee, and we appointed a new planning commission member, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Planning Commission subcommittees. We have not met. The ordinance subcommittee has not met since our last meeting, I don't believe. And what else is, the master plan subcommittee has not met, right? Okay, so report of the EIC. Well, we don't have that, do we? Do we have someone that can report on that?
Nope.
Okay,
Was there a meeting, Mr. Linderman?
there is a meeting, but we don't have a report, okay. Comments of planning commission members. Mr. O'Connor, would you like to begin?
Sure, I'm happy to see and very welcoming to the two new members that we have. I'm glad that you guys stepped up and asked to, be parts of these seats that were opened up because we've, had a lot of open seats on different committees and there still is, as many of us are painfully aware, that we wanna make sure that we keep full. So, outside of that, I'm very happy with all the things that we got through today because, it was obviously arduous. We've gone 2 hours for, a whole lot of stuff and we got a lot accomplished, so thank you.
No comment.
I have no comments at this time.
Mr. Tessier?
Yeah, I just wanna comment, working with John and trying to set up, and Fred, trying to set up training. As new members are on the board, years ago, I was appointed to be an education person to bring the, education into the, for all of our boards. So, in that capacity, I have, always tried to get, what our needs and wants are for educating our board members. And if anybody has ideas along those lines, please bring them forward so that we can arrange that type of training. Training is important. We have mandated 6 hours annual training. We'd like to get that training done here in Oscoda. We are, we've been very successful on the trainings that we have brought here. We offer that to 50-mile radius of Oscoda Township for the surrounding communities to educate their boards also, which helps us pay for that service. And in the past, we've actually come up ahead, made money on it. So this is a good thing, but more important than that is, we are being recognized by the Michigan Association of Planners as a educational hub for northeastern Michigan. They help us, they advertise our training, they support that, and it is my hope that we can become an official hub. They do these trainings in Gaylord, they do them in Frankenmuth. I don't see why we can't do them in Oscoda. That means that this side of the state of Michigan can get that training closer to home and get our boards educated. I think it's very important. I have talked with different entities. I've talked with Mr. Chris Martin from, he's the economic coordinator for Develop IOSCO, and he is on board also with that training. He thinks it's a great idea, and he would help advertise to the 14 municipalities in IOSCO County. So this is very important for us to get that training. So that's what my drive is right now. We're working with John, and hopefully shortly we'll get some of that training done here. We're gonna bring in zoning and planning essentials course because we have new members here. So that is a good one, and a site plan review, and any other ones. Boards working together is another good one, but there are several out there, and if anybody has a need that they would like to see if we get addressed for training our boards, all you gotta do is say something and we'll see what we can work out on that. John is also one of the trainers for Michigan Association of Planners, so we can use John in that capacity. That's it.
Mr. Cleary?
I have nothing, no comments.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
I got none.
Okay.
Thank you for welcoming me, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
I'll keep
Honestly.
my comments brief, because I'm losing my voice. But I'd like to welcome our 2 new members, and this is not necessarily a representative meeting. It is, but it isn't. It wasn't, we didn't have a public hearing. We didn't make planning decisions per se. We made legislative decisions, but we didn't adjudicate anything. So you have that to look forward to. And I think you'll enjoy it, and not all of the meetings will be this long and tedious, because we had a lot of my edits, and I apologize for that. If I had been more organized, I could have gotten them in sooner, and you could have looked at them in paper and not had to listen to them, but that's what you get, so,
I
sorry.
applaud you for going that detailed into them, that's.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, anyway, comes with the price, so, thank
And-
you all, I look forward to working with
We
everyone.
need.
Excuse me, Madam
comments
Chairman?
from you.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Butler,
Oh, I do.
you have no comments?
No, I do.
Okay.
I got another hour or so. I believe Bob mentioned at the last board meeting that a grant was applied for Michigan, was it Department of Health and Human Services, what? Mishta, for the amount of $50,000 to help offset the costs of, getting the 165 ordinance passed. Bob and I filled that out, what was it, last
Thursday or Friday?
Thursday. Got one little tweak to do to it, but I can say we already got approved for it,
What? Did you say we got approved?
yeah. So,
Whoa.
there's a little
Woo!
wordsmithing going on between Bob and I to massage the words in such a way that we got it.
That's a, what, 12,500?
Match.
Our match for $50,000.
I gambled on that because they kind of required a match and thought half, and I thought, well, I'll see what quarter does and see what happens.
That is
Wow.
It stuck to the
awesome.
wall.
Wow.
We also, on my sheet here, we were planning on having a presentation with John for the Flight District. I'm glad to be here. I officially moved up here in October. I've made some good friends. I mean, Tim's one of my neighbors, first guy I met. It's a nice area. It feels like home to me, like it did down in Cahog. But we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things to get over with. And I wanna move forward. There's a lot of good things that can happen in this community if we allow it to happen and just stay focused and get it done. And that's my plan, just to get it done. We got a lot of growth to do and we can do it. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Lyons, do you have any comments?
No.
Thank you very much for coming. And thank you to everyone in the audience, and Ms. Kress, I didn't welcome you, but thank you for coming. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.